Howdy, friends. Happy Tuesday. How are we all? I hope we're doing well. It's snowing here in southern New England, which is actually this year pretty rare. I think we've only had maybe one other significant snowstorm, and we're only expecting about 4 inches, which, everyone's freaking out about, but that's kind of nothing for New Englanders. I think everyone, here, the very last day of January, everyone seems to have assumed that we weren't going to get a winter at all, because it's not only been not snowing, it's also been mild. And winter does that around here. We forget, it seems like we're going to have a mild winter, and then February, March comes along, and boom. Happily, though, the weather has not delayed the arrival of a new deck, which I'm excited for. I never do unbox. I tried to do like an unboxing first impressions video with the Bonefire, and for various reasons that didn't work out. And I did do a walkthrough just because I hadn't seen any at that point of the mass market. But that turned into sort of a whining video about how we need to do a better job creating diversity in decks. This is a deck from Spain, and it's called the Jonasa Jaus, and I guarantee I'm pronouncing that wrong. And so, henceforth, I shall refer to the artist as the artist. And I shall try to do that all the way through, because I'm actually not even certain of the artist's gender, and I don't want to make assumptions. But I found this on Instagram, and I'm really excited about it. So let's just dig in, right? Because it's like Christmas morning. I am so not good. I've never been good at waiting. So this came in yesterday, and I got a slip in my mailbox saying I had to go to the post office to pick it up. And so I had to wait till this morning, and then I had to work. So it sat there on my desk looking at me at work all day. That was torturous. I had this on one side of me, and I had Girl Scout cookies on the other side of me. That's not a healthy work environment. That's not how people should work. And I did it to myself. Although I did open the Girl Scout cookies. It's Caramel Delights, if you're interested. Anyway, when I was a kid, I would order something, and that was a long time ago, or it feels like it. I would literally wait for the mailman. It was always a man then, the postal carrier, like a puppy. And I would get devastated when things I was waiting for didn't come in. So, anyway, this is this deck, and I am already loving how this is packaged. There's, like a baby's breath here. See, I love when people package things this way. I'm going to tell more stories about myself. And if you're curious about looking at this deck, you're going to listen. That's how this is going to go. This is a little bit of a hostage situation. Sorry, y'all. When I was younger and I had more ambition and more patience, I used to wrap my Christmas gifts, in a theme every year with like brown craft paper and raffia. I never know how to say it. I never know like where. I have a tendency to sound like Frasier, and it's just, honestly, it comes out of, my dad is an editor, and I spent a lot of time having any trace of an accent trained out of me when I was taking acting classes. And you can still hear the New England in my voice, but it's not that strong. You hear it in my vowels in particular. I'm rambling like a crazy person tonight. Like, it's worse than usual. But, whatever. Where was I go? Oh, pretentiousness. Raffia. I think it's raffia. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I would get very, very ambitious with my wrapping. Like, beautiful glass Christmas ornaments, decorating them instead of name tags. Now, like, if I buy wrapping paper at all, it's a magical time of year. Yes, Jonasa Jaus is the name. And you can find this artist on Instagram and on this Tumblr account. So if you're interested, seek this artist out. I love twine. Come on. This note here tells me that I'm awesome, which, let me tell you what, sometimes we need to hear in life. I'm not like a careful unwrapper, by the way. I'm being more careful than I would ever be because there's people watching, theoretically. Come on. So, it comes in, just sort of a, this is large. Do you want to hear something else silly? Every time I say this is a big deck, it makes me chuckle like a 12-year-old because I am a juvenile in some ways. So this is a big deck. It really is. It's much bigger than I was expecting. This is the box it comes in. It's a tuck box. And then here are the cards. I have not seen most of these cards. What I can say is that I was drawn to this really incredible shape. I love this sort of longer than wider card. So that's really cool. This is not going to be easy to shuffle, but it might be able to edge shuffle. This is a pip deck. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. And that is good for many reasons. One of which is that inspired by many other YouTubers, I've been looking at pip decks. The gateway drug for the pip decks for me was actually the Wild Unknown. I would not have gotten that deck had I not been feeling adventurous, and not actually having been going through the sort of feeling of, frustration with a lot of the decks that featured people in them. But the that deck kind of opened the door for me. And what I get so distracted. This is the kind of person, this is the brain of somebody whose mind moves faster than his mouth does. That opened the door for me to realize that I could still get an impression of a card without having like a Waite Smith scene on it. And the other thing is I discovered that I kind of knew the meanings of those cards so well. I knew the images so well that I didn't even really need them anymore. Now, this deck is in Spanish, I believe, or in a, if I'm not Spanish directly, a dialect of the artist. This is where this deck has come from. So I am not going to necessarily know. They're not numbered. That is one thing I noticed. So unlike a lot of Marseille decks, and this is a Marseille-inspired deck, it's actually inspired by the Jodorowsky book. Here, The Way of Tarot by Alejandro Jodorowsky. And this is what I've been reading. It's a giant monster of a book. It's interesting. I've talked about this book in other videos, so I won't get too much into it, but this deck is inspired by this book. Although it does differ in some ways from Marseille inspired decks or Marseille decks. So I may have to guess on the titles. I don't even know. They don't even seem to be in order necessarily. So it'll be a little bit of a guessing game. But I'll do my best. I took French in high school, so this says Astrea, which I would imagine is the star. This is Forza, which I would assume is force. This looks like the Wheel of Fortune. This looks like Justice. I actually got so close I don't really need to hold these up, do I? The Empress. I love this color scheme. I guarantee not going to pick up. Maybe it will. There's these violets, these lilacs in it, which is not a color, I see a lot of, but it's a thin stock, so it's gonna require careful shuffling. Um, this looks like the moon. Here we have Death, which in Marseille, as we know, is actually not named. Temperance. I really like this. The Tower. So actually, I'm doing a better job getting these names than I thought I would. I'm not sure. I'm guessing this is the sun. I'll have to do a Google Translate on the ones I'm not sure of, but it looks sun-like. This one I'm not sure of. Based on the oh no, this has to be the sun. So, I'm not sure what that is. Someone who speaks Spanish or a Spanish-derived language may be able to help me. This is definitely the sun. I'm guessing this is Judgment. Potentially the Hanged Man? Definitely the Emperor. What's interesting is that this is a very natural feeling, gentle feeling deck, but it's also a very dark. Our Emperor is a skeleton. I'm not sure what that would be. I'm pretty sure this is the Magician because I remember seeing an Instagram post. The World. This will be the Pope. It's nice that I think this is the High Priestess or the Popess. It's nice that the kind of overtly Christian imagery is sort of, for me, it's subdued. The Lovers, I think. Really like this. I really am so kind of drawn into this. I can't get... Maybe this is the High Priestess. This seems to have a... what's the word I'm looking for? A sanctuary sounding name. So that looks like it's the majors. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So yeah, I mean, I guess, like me, unless you're using a translation software, or the language, it is, the cards aren't immediately, not all the cards are immediately recognizable. Still beautiful though, and I think, worth looking at, because they are recognizable enough that they're usable. So this is the Ace of Wands, the 2. So there are, unlike traditional Marseille style or inspired decks, there's clearly human imagery in these cards, and imagery in general. But they're very simple. So it feels like there's a skosh, like a whisper of Waite-Smith in here. But the art is really, really pretty and really evocative. Oh God, look at that. Now, will this affect interpretation? In a way, this actually feels more like The Wild Unknown than Marseille. I believe this is the 10. I think this is Caballero, which I imagine would be the Knight. and then the queen, and then the king. And then this, or maybe the system works with the knight as the low. So there's no book, you know what I mean? It just is what it is. So you're either going to have to make those up yourself, or decide or guess. But the court is this. So this definitely feels like king and queen. This feels like page and knight, or princess and knight. So again, it's worth looking at a translator. But again, I think the nice thing about the kind of generality, that's not the word I'm looking for, but the openness of it is you can sort of decide for yourself how you want to use it. So here's the Ace of Cups, the 2, the 3. So there is more impression. It's not just a Pips deck. It also seems very female-centric. The only specifically masculine cards I've noticed were the Emperor and the Knight and King. So here we go into the swords. Even in the cards that do feature people, what you don't get is sort of overt or, overtly traditional Rider-Waite-Smith meanings, which could be good or could be not good. Depending on your point of view. But the color palette is very soothing, for a deck that seems to have a slight undertone of violence. To me, the color palette's very soothing. So here we are in the coins, or pentacles. So, I mean, overall, I really love this. If I had my way, I would not have people on any of the Pips for several reasons. But the thing, more and more, I'm really appreciating decks that. And the other day, I mentioned the in my sort of ramble that I posted on Sunday about, or maybe it was Saturday, about being wrong. I used the Pagan Otherworlds, which I hadn't initially liked. But that deck has done something like the Wild Unknown and like Tower of Trees. And Tower of Trees and Wild Unknown take it to a further degree, which is there's no people in it at all. That there's no people in the minors on the Pagan Otherworlds. And because there's 56 minors and 22 majors, well, and then the core cards, right? But the thing about people in decks, and the reason why I guess I wish there weren't any in this one, even though it is beautiful and I'm not complaining, is that the expression, here's a great example, the expression on the face of the person tips the hat so much that you don't, it's not easy necessarily to ignore it. because we are programmed to respond to the emotion written on a person's face. And actually, for all the negative uh, reputation of the Wade Smith deck, one of the things that, I mean, I think people don't like that deck, but they do like Pamela Coleman Smith. Even even people who don't like the deck kind of admire or respond to a handful at least of her images. The thing that she does really successfully is that she keeps the faces fairly neutral when we see faces, and that's something I wish more tarot artists would mimic. Because even in Wade Smith clones, we get expression, we get emotion. And as a reader, I don't want to be told how to feel about the emotion of the people engaging in a scene on the card. And so while I'm not like animal decks have never been my thing, like expressly, one of the reasons why I fell so hard for the Wild Unknown is because there aren't any expressions. There's energy. The Ten of Cups in the Wild Unknown is not the Ten of Cups. The Ten of Swords in the Wild Unknown is certainly a dark card, but it doesn't affect the meaning much for me. But the expression on a face would. So I mean, that's just a preference thing. So that's me. Now let's see. Even sort of shuffling it overhand is going to be difficult. But I was going to say I shouldn't mix it up because I don't know all the titles, but it wasn't in order to begin with, so I'm going to do it. Let's see. Can I get a riffle shuffle? Ish. Maybe with a little more practice. I try to be very delicate with handmade deck. Yeah, there's no way I can. I have small. Let me actually move this out of the way a little bit. I have small hands for a guy, which I'm not ashamed to admit because there's nothing I can do about it. So it's but I think even for someone with large hands, this would be a bit of a challenge. But I mean, if you have Hulk hands, it's very flexible. I'm sure it would riffle shuffle really well. Let's see, how can I do it this way? See, I like to look really elegant when when I shuffle. That's a little bit better. When I shuffle, I like to be impressive. I like to be impressive all the time. And I did a thing the other day about not wanting to be impressive. But you know what? I'm a human and I want to be impressive sometimes. But that's not about this anyway. So yeah, actually, I think I could get used to this. Because it's very, very thin. Almost, I would say it's thinner than even like poster board for, like a science project. It's almost paper. Oops. But in fact, given the size of it, doing this corner shuffle is probably going to be the easiest way to do it, short of a kind of table spread. This isn't bad. I mean, it's fine. This is the back. I haven't showed that. It's actually just a color variation on this, which is easier to see. So I'm going to pull some cards, although I won't fully be able to interpret them unless I know what their titles are, so. One more time. I'm an over-shuffler, because I really find shuffling relaxing. If you saw the Lenormand video I posted the other day, you can see my copy of the Maybe Lenormand has been... I mean, I'm not sure that I'm like a great... or gonna be a great Lenormand reader, but I have shuffled the heck out of that deck. It is creased like crazy, which doesn't bother me. I like a deck to look like it's used. Let's see, what should I pull some cards about? let's do something positive because everything's been so negative lately. What's the most positive thing we can focus on this week? So we've got this. I think this. I'm gonna go with this as the page of cups of coins, and I could be entirely wrong, and I'm gonna beg for forgiveness. And then judgment, and then this. Again, I feel sexist saying this, but I don't know the associations. What I know is that traditionally younger feminine characters are associated with pages, for better or worse. So I'm going to go with the page of swords there. So what's the most positive thing we can focus on this week? Well, both of these characters, even though they're very sort of cautious, they're cautious. They're kind of cautious representations of their suits. So we have sort of a cautious attitude about the coins, sort of cautiously swordsy. They're both looking sort of to the future. And if they are pages, which I'm just going to say they are for the purposes of this video, they are both optimistic. So there's like a cautious optimism and the willingness to learn new things sort of practically in life and also intellectually. So one of the things that we can focus on is our ability to be cautiously optimistic, look towards the future cautiously, look at what we can do and what we can learn, both about life every day and about communication and our ability to cut through bullshit. And the sort of major kind of energy here of coming out of, or sort of rising from the dead, being called to a greater thing and coming out of the darkness. So there is an energy of like being resurrected, of being pulled up, of coming out. Now, given this image, that could mean there's a slight tendency towards zombies, and maybe this page of swords is going to cut the head off us. But, this is an optimistic reading. So an awakening, a coming to, a realization, a rebirth, a reawakening, while being cautiously optimistic, cautiously looking towards the future. So this is not like a bounteous, joyful optimism. This is a very practical optimism, a very thoughtful optimism, practical and thoughtful. But a dawning, an awakening, and a rising of something that comes after a lot of crap. So there is what we can focus on this week positively. So there's like a cautious, thoughtful, practical, pragmatic approach to looking at the future, but also a deep sense of reawakening, awakening, resurrection, coming out of the dark. So anyway, that's that. This is, again, the, I want to get the name right, the Jonasa Jaus. Again, I guarantee I'm saying that wrong. In fact, knowing that this artist has created a deck written, I believe, in Spanish, and since it came from Spain, I'm going to go ahead and say that that's absolutely not pronounced. That's pronounced. But congratulations to the artist on this beautiful deck. I think I saw today that it's sold out, but I also think I may have seen that she's thinking about doing another edition. So, but I also know, because I've found decks this way, that when new indie decks come out, sometimes smaller online boutiques like Little Red Tarot and others will snap up a couple copies that they can sell retail. So you may be able to find this if you look around, and it may be coming out, in another edition. So that's that. Thanks for taking this little tour with me of a new deck, and as always, have a great week.